This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you, Sideways, for the segue. A lot of people have been covering the show Velma. From the clips I've seen, my biggest gripe is the characters don't feel like themselves. It doesn't really feel like a reimagining of the series when you utilize the Scooby-Doo IP, but strip down the personalities of those that made the show beloved in the first place. But ultimately, all this buzz surrounding Velma made me want to revisit some of the Scooby-Doo stories from my childhood. The one that ended up sparking the idea for this video was Scooby-Doo and the Cyberchase. It made me rethink how I personally would have approached the show Velma, starting with the setting. So Velma is set in high school, and I think it was set up that way as a sort of origin story of how the cast meets each other. I would have scrapped that entirely and instead have them set in college, or at least have them all as young adults, because in Cyberchase the crew starts off going to a college to visit their friend Eric. And you gotta think, this movie came out in 2001, so the majority of people who grew up watching this movie are in college or in the working force. And in general, it'd be nice to see more shows set in college rather than in high school, and it's not like doing so would limit the show's exposure to a younger audience. Now let's move on to the plot. So in Cyberchase, there's this virus that ends up coming out of the game that was based on the Scooby-Doo crew. It starts wreaking havoc by stealing people's Netflix passwords and controlling devices, among other heinous acts. And its only kryptonite is magnets. The mystery crew tries chasing down the virus and ends up getting sucked into the game, but can't escape until they complete all 10 levels. Throughout the levels, they end up encountering the virus, who also got sucked back into the game. I really like this premise. I know the idea of a cast of characters getting sucked into a game isn't the most original plot out there, but I like it. I think with the advancements we've seen in technology since 2001, it'd be an interesting topic to re-explore, especially because the professor mentions how we're all so tied to our devices and so reliant on them, which rings even more true today.
But whoever created this virus is in serious trouble. Our civilization is so dependent on technology that this virus is a threat to the entire world.
Now my idea for Velma would be to have the whole crew, including Scoob, but Velma would still be the titular character. In Cyberchase, they actually set this up perfectly after the credits roll, where they have Velma start narrating their experience they had in the video game.
I may be a bit of a bookworm, but I've got a wild side too. That's why my favorite part of Scooby-Doo and the Cyberchase was shooting in the prehistoric jungle. It really brought out the animal in me. Shaggy found out what it was like to be a real cowpoke. And after a little practice, Scooby and I started the first cattle drive.
Maybe it's one of those stories where they begin at the end or at a critical part of the story, and then it takes us back to where it all started. Something along the lines of, oh wow, you're probably wondering how I got myself into the situation. Well, let me tell you how it all started, and then it rewinds forward. Something akin to that. I think you get the idea, the gist of it. So I'm thinking we're at a college, either the mystery crew is enrolled there, or maybe they're just visiting a friend like they did in Cyberchase. But all of a sudden, students start disappearing from campus. And coincidentally, there's a really popular VR game that's all the rage that just came out. I can imagine Shaggy or Scooby wanting to play it, and they end up buying it. Through that, the crew ends up getting sucked into the game. And now they have to uncover who's the developer behind it and how to escape alongside the students who have also been trapped inside the game. One of the issues I did have with Cyberchase that I think could be resolved in an episodic series instead of trying to cram everything into one runtime is the pacing of the levels. The movie goes through levels 1, 2, and 3, but for levels 4 through 9, they just do it with a short montage. Then suddenly, halfway through the movie, we're at the last level, which was by far the most interesting, but I'll get to that in due time. I think it'd be beneficial to spend an episode on 1 or even 2 levels, allowing for a more creative and in-depth approach to each level. Maybe some levels can highlight the relationship of Velma and another character of the crew. Each level could be like a mystery within a mystery that leads to a clue of who the developer might be. And since it's a video game, you can really play around with the environment. And through that, you can show little tidbits of personality of how the characters are still very much from the modern era. Imagine a level where they have to use a rotary phone or a floppy disk and none of them have a clue how to use it. I think that'd be pretty funny. And if you wanted to, you could still poke fun at the Scooby-Doo franchise while still being tactful about it.
I think we stand a better chance of finding it if we split up. Hey, you guys, I didn't see how we were gonna split up.
Like, do we ever do it any other way?
Also, this next clip I'm about to show you, I laughed way too hard at it. I think my humor is broken. I think the internet done broke my humor.
Volcano.
Volcano?
Oh, great! It looks like it's really cooking.
My favorite part of cyberchase, hands down, was the cyber clones. I always find it so interesting when shows or movies have it to where the main cast of characters have an alternate version of themselves that they end up interacting with. Or they meet with their future or past self or people they knew from their future or past. It always lends itself to so many goofy and funny moments. I don't know exactly how to incorporate that aspect into the Velma series, but I love to see it. Maybe the game, when it sucks you in, it replaces the real life you with an AI, and the developer's goal was to replace every human with an AI, but there's a glitch in the system where one of the AI still stays in the game alongside their real life counterpart, and they end up like working together or something. I know that goes against my disappearing student idea in the beginning, but I'm still figuring things out with the plot, so. When it comes to the big reveal of who the culprit of Velma is, I'm still a bit wonky on that part. Like I said, I'm making this up as I go. I just would prefer it if it was more of a twist villain, like maybe one of the friends who fell into the video game befriends Velma, but ends up backstabbing her in the end and was behind it all, like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Because in Cyberchase, the culprit was a little too obvious. The virus made baseball references every single level. The professor and security guard were too stereotypically suspicious for me to even consider them as options. Like, they seemed more like a red herring than anything. And the baseball guy being the culprit felt as much of a cop-out as when shows do the evil twin gimmick, which I'm not a big fan of either. They even state outright that the culprit could be in the very same room as them.
I'm wondering something here, fellas. Who activated that laser and sent those poor kids into the game?
Who knows? Could be anyone.
Even someone in this very room.
I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but instead of calling the show Velma, I would call mine Velma in cyberspace to kind of play off the whole Scooby-Doo and cyberchase. I think that'd be kind of cool. I think that's all I really had to say in regards to my new plot for Velma. And despite my critiques of Scooby-Doo and the cyberchase, it's still one of my favorite Scooby-Doo movies. And it was really nice being able to rewatch it. And I think a lot of my love for it came down to nostalgia, honestly. Let me know what changes you would make to Velma and what are your favorite OG Scooby-Doo movies. I love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm Thorn, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
You look so cute in that outfit, Freddy.
Cute? That's not what I was going for.